things change. You have a file format that requires a certain software to render it. That software requires an operating system. That operating system might require a specific chip in order to do that. And so we actually have a patent on an obsolescence algorithm, format obsolescence algorithm, which we've developed into a database so that we're monitoring those obsolescence factors. So if a file format is no longer supported by, let's say, five software, or the software requires an operating system that is no longer supported, or a new chip comes out that's going to be required, we're monitoring that. And so we notify the clients, hey, your content is endangered, and we'll make a recommendation what they should do about it.
What is Digital Bedrock?
We're a managed digital preservation service provider. And what I like to say is we're a data insurance policy for our clients. We protect them from the silent fire of data degradation that they're not even aware of.
For instance, how are you saving their tail?
Literally, we are, many times. So everybody has digital content. That digital content could be stored on old media, old LTO tape, old hard drives, whatever. They don't know what's on it. So first thing to do is we have to get that data off. Quite often, that data is corrupted, or it's missing some elements that should be there, or it's misnamed or misorganized. So that's the first step, just figuring out what do they have. Get it off the old data that they didn't even know existed, finding errors. Next thing what we do is we do a forensic analysis of that. And so we say okay, so how are these files created then? What truly are they? Files do not lie. And so basically they're going to tell you what they are if you pull out the information from them. So we have really killer software that pulls out that information so we can do that analysis of it. After we verify everything is correct, that they have the data that they want, nothing's missing, we rename files quite frequently because quite often we'll get files where they are named for a different television program or a different film. Reels 1 through 3 are okay. Reel 4 is named something else. So those files go out in the wild, and again, they're lost, basically, because they have no idea what it is. So we do all that human intelligence, that human analysis at the beginning. It comes to our system. Then we write it off to LTO data tape. But it's all in an open way. So an open way, I mean we're not using any kind of proprietary backup software, because that's how they got in trouble in the first place, by using proprietary systems to write the data. And then those systems are dead, they're obsolete. And so we're able to get them off. Anyway, so we're not going to do that for anybody else in the future, in 100 years from now, who will be cursing Digital Bedrock that we did something wrong with those files. No, we're going to do it in an open way, preserve them, 3 different places geographically distributed around the country, locked up, nobody can touch them. So that is security. That's also then this layer of just straight old-fashioned physical security. Nobody can touch the data, secure from any kind of hacking, any cybercrime at all. But we're still monitoring the files over time and making sure that they are still okay.
Now, what does monitoring over time mean?
Well, basically, once we get the files, and so there's something called a checksum, which a lot of people know what that is. It's basically a unique fingerprint that is for every single file. You can apply a hash algorithm to it. It's a sequence of letters and numbers. There's different layers of complexity for those checksums. Quite often people in the media industry, use what's called an MD5. It's very short, very simple, but it does its job. We apply a SHA-512 checksum, which is what the Department of Defense recommends using. It's very complex, and we've done that from the beginning because when AI marries quantum computing in, let's say, 5 years, it's going to be harder to spoof those files. Because somebody could then go in there, a bad actor, change a file, change content, change the checksum back if it's an MD5 and spoof it so you don't realize that somebody has changed that file. But because of all this very detailed work we're doing, we're making sure that those files can be verified, which means you're checking the checksum. You're verifying that checksum. And so once a year, we take a data tape out of a secure vault, put it back in the tape libraries, tape robots, verify the checksums on every single file, make sure they are still okay, and they are. I mean, we've done tens of millions of files, and every single one is fine because we're so careful. Now, if anything failed a fixity, it's called a fixity check in digital preservation language. Anything failed, we're going to suspect something's wrong with that data media. the storage media, the LTO tape, which is why we even do digital preservation information on the tapes themselves. We know exactly what serial number every single tape has, every single file is on which tape. We know which batch it came from. So if in case anything fails on a tape, we're going to pull every single tape that is from that same batch, wherever it's stored around the country, and verify it and make sure it's okay. Again, that's that managed digital preservation work, that we are making sure, yes, it's physically stored offline, different places, locked away, but we're going to verify the files are okay.
I think it's safe to say that archiving media over the long term is an exercise in futility. The operating system upgrades, the plugins upgrade, everything upgrades.
Correct.
What do you recommend as best practice for archiving media projects?
Well, two things. One is where try to make sure that whatever system you're using, whatever format that you're writing to, that's critical thing as a format, is as open as possible and not proprietary. But there's just no way around it in the creative space. Things change. We're monitoring that. And so we notify the clients, hey, your content is endangered, and we'll make a recommendation what they should do about it.
For example?
The first step is to have knowledge, to know that this is a problem. I mean, just an example also of operating systems. So I mentioned like forensic analysis. We get tapes LTO2, LTO3 generations. So for those in the audience right now, the current generation is LTO9. They don't make drives anymore for those. And not only that, but we'll get them operating in backup systems that no longer exist. And so then we keep like a museum of old computers. We just had to do a project where we have these old Windows machines that run Windows XP. Of course, it's not connected to the internet, because if you do that, you can get all these viruses. And we're running NT back. We had Windows XP because it can have NT backup inside it. We had to get an old LTO drive that had a certain connection to connect to this Windows XP old machine. I have good suppliers for hardware. But I mean, that's the kind of work you have to do to keep the main thing is to get that content off, and then once you get it off, then you can analyze it and tell your client, then this is what you have. Then they had no idea, which is again going back to the silent fire that I mentioned at the beginning. That's a silent fire for them. Tape sitting there, tape looks okay, but the data on it is not usable, so it might as well have been a fire. So we're the firefighters.